Welcome to the To Be Honest podcast. Today I am talking with Esha K, a San Francisco Bay Area native who is an alternative rock indie vocalist and songwriter with extensive experience within the music industry. Influenced by artists like Fleetwood Mac, Jeff Buckley, and James Bay, her music incorporates a unique blend of heartfelt lyrics, powerful vocals, and a catchy guitar riffs to deliver songs that appeal to people from all walks of life. Esha is passionate to use her position as a woman in the music industry and as a person of color to bring a fresh perspective and sound to the alternative rock genre. Today, she's on the podcast to talk about her experience with mental health and the impact of music on her healing. So welcome to the podcast, Esha.
Thank you so much, Avery. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here as well. To get started, I like to ask every guest, to be honest, how are you doing today?
To be honest, I'm a little tired today, but it's a Monday when we're recording this on a Monday. So just a classic, Monday tiredness. But other than that, I am so great.
Awesome. So good to hear. Hopefully we can get through this episode, power through, and then we can all take naps after this. I wanted to get to know you a bit and your background and kind of get to know your experience with mental health. I know you've experienced anxiety in the past. So would you mind talking a bit about when you first experienced anxiety, and was there something that triggered it, or how did that all kind of begin?
Of course. I mean, to be honest, I think anxiety is something that's always been around in my life in some way or the other. I've always been a worrier, so I'm always worrying too much about things that I shouldn't, or things that don't really need to be worried about that much. But, if it exists, I've, probably worried about it at some point. But I think I really noticed my anxiety getting worse in the beginning of high school, and also just especially increased in the beginning of the pandemic. When I was in high school, I struggled a lot with self-confidence and just body image and myself. I think I just never felt like I was enough. And I always felt a lot of pressure, both academically and socially, to fit a mold that I wasn't really created for. Because I've always been very passionate about music and the arts, and I grew up in an area that's very oriented towards science and technology and math and engineering, which is all amazing. But I think it was just tough being someone that wasn't necessarily geared that way. So I think with that came a lot of anxiety of, what am I doing? What's wrong with me? Like, why don't I fit in? And I think just as you go through high school, there's so many social pressures, so much academic pressure, so much uncertainty about the future and where you're going to end up, that I think, that was always kind of been ingrained in my mind since a young age. But I noticed things to get really, really bad at the beginning of the pandemic. I was about to graduate college, and everything went online, everything went up in the air. I had a huge, 2-year life plan for myself post-graduation from college, and suddenly everything became a huge question mark. And I'm a huge, huge, huge planner. And so when all of that happened, I remember just feeling so stuck, so unsure of everything. So I guess panicked is the best way to describe it. In addition to, of course, the global anxiety regarding COVID and everyone's health and well-being, worrying about family, worrying about myself, not really knowing, as none of us did, what was going on in the world. So I think that's when I noticed things to take a turn for the significant worst. And I noticed I was feeling a lot of, just unable to process anything, feeling super numb almost everything, because everything felt like too much, feeling overwhelmed. I remember a couple days initially, like I would just shut down and not know like what was going on around me, or not really being able to respond or talk much. And then, I guess that was a very long answer to when it all started.
No, that's great. And I know, I remember we talked about before at the podcast that you were in London, I think, when you first kind of experienced like the intense like panic attacks and anxiety. Was it the same thing? Was it the COVID pandemic and things just kind of being off kilter at that moment that led to those panic attacks? What was that like for you?
100%. So after I graduated college, my plan was to go to London to study abroad for a year at a music school. And initially, even that was put into question in regards to would I be able to travel, would my visa come through? So there was a whole bunch of stressors with getting there and whether or not I'd be able to get there. But, luckily things worked out and I was able to move to London August of 2020, which was huge for me. It had always been a dream for me to go to London and live there and study music. So you would think that everything would be great and I would be so happy. But unfortunately, at that time, my anxiety really, really started taking things, to a whole new level. I was living alone there and didn't really know anybody socially, didn't really have many people there in my social circles and my friend group. I was living alone in a one-bedroom apartment. So it was very isolating, especially to be there in a time where, there were constant restrictions on who you can meet, how you can meet, where you can go. And I think for me, this was my first real time experiencing living alone. And that's hard no matter, how old you are, how many times you've done it. It's always an adjustment. But I think, this is my first time living alone, my first time really being out of the Bay Area, living somewhere else. And also living in a new country, experiencing that has its own challenges and benefits, but definitely challenges and getting used to everything. So I think just having to navigate all of that by myself was really, really difficult. And I was petrified of COVID. I had what I like to call a COVID culture shock when I reached the UK because, having experienced the pandemic in the Silicon Valley, things are very different. Most people wear masks and take things seriously, and most people here were very, very cautious. And I felt like when I got there, every country has its own way of doing things. And I was very startled when I first got there because, people were going to restaurants and people were celebrating birthdays and attending events to a certain extent. And for me, coming from super, super cautious, Bay Area, I was shocked and I was terrified. And I was completely, completely thrown off. And I think that just made me fear COVID even more, especially as I saw the numbers getting bad in the UK and as I noticed more restrictions starting to pile on, I started to experience really severe panic attacks. I remember the first panic attack I actually felt was in the immigration line at the airport when I'd landed. And I remember because there were so many people, and I think everyone was rushing back before more restrictions were placed. And it all happened to be on the day that I was coming. And I remember seeing all these people around me who'd come from so many different countries and, wearing masks to different extents, and no one was distancing. And I remember standing in this line, immediately feeling my body temperature start to rise and immediately feeling dizzy and like I was going to pass out. And of course, the first thought in my head was, oh my God, I have COVID. Like right now, I have COVID. Like I can feel I think I have a fever. I'm sweating. Like I'm dizzy. I can't see straight. My ears are ringing. I was just freaking out. And I was standing in line around all these other people. And in my head, I was thinking, how is nobody noticing that I very well could be having a heart attack and dying right now? Because I just couldn't process anything. I don't know how I was standing on my 2 feet. But, I was just, I was going through the line, somehow was able to talk to the immigration officer and get words out. I still to this day do not know how. And after a good 30 minutes, like I could slowly feel that initial sense of, panic start to taper down. And I thought it was a one-time thing. Didn't really know what happened. Thought, maybe I was dehydrated, whatever. It's fine. Brushed it aside. And then I remember, the first time I really pushed my limits when I was there. And after a couple weeks of meeting a couple people, I went with some friends to a bar or an indoor pub or something. And this is my first time going indoors in more than a year at a social gathering. And I remember not many people were wearing masks, and all in, the whole time in my head, I was just thinking, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what am I doing here? I'm going to get sick. And, I live alone. There's no one to take care of me. If I get sick, I have to fend for myself. I'm terrified. Like my parents can't come. They're, here in the United States, and I'm not, risking their health by asking them to travel. Like I don't know what I'm going to do. So I remember going back to my apartment after this and immediately jumping into the shower. And as I'm in the shower, I can immediately feel that same sense of dread, starting to pick up. My heart rate is increasing. In my head, like all that's going on is I'm not clean. Like I'm infected. And so I'm scrubbing myself with soap, just not feeling like I can shake, the dirt hypothetically off of me. And then I get out of the shower, hyperventilating. I can't breathe. Like I'm crying, I'm shaking. I can't get words out of my mouth. I call my mom. She sees me like, on the other end of the phone. And, luckily she was really able to calm me down and kind of talk me through it. But, I think those two were the first panic attacks that kicked off a solid like month of being in a semi-panic attack nonstop. I remember so many times throughout the month of October 2020, I Googled, am I dying if my heart is racing? Or, my hand would literally be checking my pulse 24/7 because I was like, my heart is beating so fast. My chest is hurting. Like this has to be a heart attack. And just, I couldn't drink coffee because coffee would give me chest pain. I was like, oh, I'm allergic to coffee. Like everything was freaking me out. And I remember feeling so exhausted just constantly and just really not feeling like myself. And I remember waking up in the morning wishing I could go back to bed again and just really struggling. And again, kind of going into this period of I can't process anything because I'm processing so many things. And it was really, really frightening for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely had a panic attack before, and I don't think people understand sometimes like how scary that can be. Like you feel out of control with your body and what's happening, and you don't like. And I was home alone too, so I was like, I have no idea what is going on. But yeah, you just kind of like freak out, and you don't know how to like calm yourself down. I laid on my bathroom floor because it was like cold. Really embarrassing, but like I was like, I don't know what else to do. Like I just need to like breathe and like lay down for a few minutes. But
it's terrifying, honestly. Like I have never experienced anything like it, and never hope anyone has to experience anything like it, even though I know that, I can't really do anything to prevent people from dealing with it. But, my heart really, really goes out for people that experience similar things, because it is truly the feeling that, just worrying that you think you're going to die every day it's not fun. It's not fun at all. And I think it just really takes a toll on everything from obviously your emotional well-being, just thinking that, waking up in the morning and having your first thought being, I think I'm going to die today. It's never a good thing. But also socially, it's so hard to interact with people when you've got this hurricane of thoughts going through your mind, and physically too. I remember just being so exhausted all the time. Just, I couldn't do things that I wanted to do because I was so low energy. And, I have a therapist. I'm really, really lucky to have worked with her for a number of years now. And I remember her telling me when I was experiencing all of this, like, your body is essentially running a marathon every time you have a panic attack. And, if you're in this panic mode for a whole month, you're basically running a marathon nonstop every day.
Wow.
So yeah, it was because I would ask her like, why do I not have energy to work out or exercise? These are things that are supposed to make me feel better. I can't even do like a jumping jack without being exhausted. And she told me, like, be kind. You're doing a lot more than it feels like you're doing just by being worried. So she really, really kind of put that into perspective for me in regards to like, why do I feel so horrible? Why, why is my hair falling out? Like it was definitely scary, but it helped to have that rational voice kind of, talking me through it and saying, you're not dying. It's okay. Like it's not normal to feel this way, but at the same time, it's not just you. You're not alone, which was huge to hear, I think, in that time.
Yeah, I think so many people in this past year, we haven't really talked about on the podcast, but especially in the past year and a half, people have had increased anxiety because of COVID. And I think more people are experiencing that than we even can imagine, that there is that fear because it's almost like a invisible thing to us. Like we can't, it's not
100%.
tangible. So unless we have it, we don't really know if we have it or not, like it's out there. We don't know where it is. So it's unpredictable and it's out of our control, which I think leads to a lot of anxiety. And yeah, so yeah, thank you for sharing your experience. And you mentioned that you sought therapy. Was that, were you in therapy before you started experiencing anxiety and panic attacks, or was that something that you sought after you experienced those first panic attacks?
Yeah, so I have actually been in therapy since my senior year of high school, which was about 4.5 years ago, I believe. Because in high school, as I mentioned, a lot of issues with self-confidence, self-esteem, not feeling good enough, struggled with some health issues when I was in high school, and that was really tough to deal with. So I felt like I really needed therapy to get through that, and especially just to deal with changes and I don't know, just process high school because that in itself is a lot. So I've actually been working with her since then, and she was really a huge factor of support and just rational thinking during the anxiety. Um, and she was actually the one who told me when I started to feel these panic attacks. I remember telling her, like, I'm having these almost every day. I don't know what's going on. I hate feeling like this. And even before it got to the stage of, daily panic attacks, I remember telling her, like, I'm just not myself. I can't put a finger on it, but I'm worried about anything and everything. Of course, COVID is a huge thing, but I just cannot calm down. My mind is racing. When I go for a walk, like I'm speed walking because I just cannot slow down. Everything is just on overdrive. Like I look up at the sky and I can't concentrate on looking at the sky because there's just such a huge cloud of, I should worry about this and I should think about that. And oh, this is happening in a couple weeks. Oh, this is happening in a month. Like I just cannot chill for lack of a better word. And she actually explained to me that, Esha, your mind is really good at forming habits. And just as easy as it is for your mind to learn how to turn on a light and turn off a light, it's just as simple for it to recognize, like, turn on, your anxious mode and turn it off. And the more you turn the anxious mode on, the harder it is for you to turn it off. And the easier it is for your brain to slip into panic mode, slip into anxiety mode. And, after a while of that barrier becoming, weakened and weakened of not anxious versus anxious, your brain chemicals start to change and it becomes a little bit more wired to be anxious. So she really, really advised me to seek extra help and to reach out to a psychiatrist, which I was terrified to do because, I think medication has a certain stigma of not really being the first point of call. And of course, it shouldn't be the first point of call. It's great to try other methods, but nothing was working for me. Meditation wasn't working. Breathing wasn't working. Exercise wasn't working. I tried to do everything with nutrition, but that wasn't working. Supplements weren't working. So it was really a matter of I feel terrible and I need help. And whether or not, I'm put on medication or not, I really need a psychiatrist consultation on just everything that I'm going through right now. So she really pushed for that. And, after a little bit of going back and forth about it with my parents, because I think they were initially a little hesitant, my being in a different country and having to navigate that, they were a little hesitant about that. And I think initially they thought that the anxiety was a bit more of like an adjustment thing, where it's adjusting to a new place. But the more I explained to them, like, no, I'm really struggling. Nothing I do is helping. Like, this has been a recurring thing, and it's at a stage where I really can't control it using the coping mechanisms I've used in the past. Even they too were like, okay, we cannot have you calling us hyperventilating. Like, even for us, this is getting really scary. So, I was really lucky to have their support, and was able to, after a couple tries, find a psychiatrist over in the UK who was wonderful and listened to me and understood my concerns, and eventually thought the best approach would be to start on anxiety medication. And I can honestly say, once I started on that, I have noticed such a huge, huge, huge improvement for so much better. I remember, like, initially, of course, it was rough adjusting to the medication. I had some headaches and a little bit of nausea initially, but once my body got used to it, like, I noticed one of the biggest things I noticed is, wow, I'm able to go for a walk and recognize how beautiful the area I'm walking in is. I'm able to look at the sky and admire how beautiful it is, or I'm able to look at the trees around me and notice how beautiful their leaves look. Instead of, I'm going for a walk, but my head is to the ground, my shoulders are down, and I'm churning through this, like, whirlpool of thoughts and emotions. Like, that was suddenly so much easier to kind of block out and focus on, okay, what is bothering me at this given point in time? Instead of there's a cloud and I have to sift through it to figure out what is bothering me. It was so much more easier, I think, for me to be like, okay, I'm anxious. Why am I anxious? Let me create like a really clear path of, I'm anxious because of this. How am I going to fix this? So honestly, I think it's been such a huge help. And honestly, it's made me feel better than I felt in a really, really long time, which kind of makes me think that maybe this is something that has been an issue for longer than I even knew. Because the way I was feeling before, the way I thought was normal, is definitely not normal. And, I think just feeling that breath of fresh air after, I guess, what has been a while of being anxious has truly, truly been so amazing. And, I'm really, really thankful for the support I've gotten, and also my therapist's encouragement, my parents' support to receive and to seek out, extra help, because it was scary. And I don't know if I would have taken that step if I hadn't had people, really supporting that decision and encouraging me to take that extra step.
I appreciate you speaking on the importance of medication in certain situations. Like you said, it's not for everyone. There are other things that may work, but I think there is, like you said, a huge stigma against medication. So if you, I don't know, do you have any advice out there for anyone who may be listening who is worried about having to take medication for their mental health? Or maybe something that you would say to your past self who was a little worried about taking medication?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I was afraid of is, side effects and medication affecting my mood and just affecting things for the worse. But I think I would tell myself, listen, or I would tell anybody, honestly, who is kind of flirting with this idea of should I not? I would just honestly sit them down, look them in the eye, give them a hug, and tell them, you don't deserve to feel like this. The way that you're feeling is not something that you need to feel, and it's not something that you should feel. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling this way and for experiencing these things. But at the same time, you don't deserve to feel like this, and you deserve to feel happy and healthy and, stable, and not like you're walking on a landmine where you don't know, if you make one wrong step, you don't know what can happen. You don't deserve that. And if medication means stability and, more happiness and normalcy, I guess, then so be it. But it shouldn't be something to feel bad about. It shouldn't feel like something that you should hide or be secretive about. Just as someone is going to take medicine if they get a cold, you should take medicine if you're feeling like really, really out of your own bounds. And of course, try things like meditation. Of course, try things like, cognitive behavioral therapy and self-talk. Those are incredible tools. And I still do that all the time. But, just as like if you had a cold and you took, Tylenol, this is the same thing. It's no different. It doesn't mean you're weaker or less capable. Absolutely not. It's just something that is going to help you be more of you and be a more complete version of you.
I love that advice. I love the comparison. I think comparing things, trying to get people to see that mental health is just as important as physical health is so important. So thank you for sharing that. And I did want to switch gears a little bit, but also related, because I know music has impacted your mental health in a positive way. But I know music is a huge part of your life. So I wanted to hear a bit about your background in music and hear about like why you're so passionate about music and singing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, music has been a part of my life, and honestly has been my life for as long as I can remember. I remember, always feeling like when people haven't been necessarily there for me, or I haven't been able to be there for myself, music always has. And it's that one constant for me that has gotten me through every high, every low. It's just been such a huge presence in my life and has helped me cope with so many things. And I think, so I've been playing, performing, writing music for years and years now, and have been doing it professionally for about 5 or 6 years. But I find it to be a huge relief for me, a sense of de-stress, a huge outlet for me to process things and even recognize how I'm feeling through writing and singing and just creating music. It really helps me get more in touch with my emotions on a whole. But I think for me, it was really a crutch, and it has been a crutch and still is a crutch to get through some of the difficult times, for me to express myself in a way that, a simple conversation can't really. I find that music is able to say so much more than, a simple, I'm okay, or I'm fine. I'm, not having the best day, versus like writing about that and communicating about that through song is honestly been such a huge blessing for me. And I think it's also been a huge point of stress for me at one point of time. I remember when I was in high school and was experiencing a lot of these health issues and self-confidence, there was a time where I hated music and I hated everything I created. And I thought I was the worst. I couldn't sing a song or sing anything without, ripping myself up to shreds or hearing this self-critic go on overdrive. And it was really tough because I knew that this is something I love. I don't love it right now. And I don't love myself when I do it. Mm-hmm. And that really, really scared me because I really worried that, if I lose this, I've lost everything. This is the one thing I felt like I've been good at. This is the one thing that I'm so passionate about that it overwhelms me. And so I was really, really scared to lose that. And I think I also realized that music might be something I'm afraid of right now. I'm afraid of losing it. But at the same time, it is the only thing that is going to get me out of this. It is the only thing that will pull me out of whatever struggles I'm experiencing now. And if getting better and, mentally, physically, everything, if I'm going to get better, it's going to be because music gets me there. And so it was really a sense of, telling myself, listen, you need to get better. You need to get better so you can be a better musician. You need to get better so you can be a better communicator, a better artist, a better everything. Like, I feel like music is something that I live for and I live by. And it remains true to this day. Like, when I was anxious, I was studying, in London, I was studying music. And I remember I was so anxious all the time, but the music school and the teachers and the fact that I was around music all day was 100% a saving grace. And I tell myself, and I know myself, that if it hadn't been for the huge element and emphasis of music in my life at that time, I don't think I would have stayed in London. Like, I think I would have come home as soon as I could because of how horrible I was feeling. But just the sheer love and being immersed in such a musical environment and being able to get whatever I was feeling out with lyrics and songs, that kept me going 100%. And it kept me in London, and it kept me, waking up every morning and going to class, and, kept me connected to the people within that community. And honestly, it's been such a huge saving grace for me. And I don't think I would have gotten through half as much of life as I have without having music by my side 24/7.
I love that you've been on a journey with your music, and I'm sure it's reflected in whatever you produce. What resonated with me was when you talked about how, words aren't always the easiest. It's not always easy to talk about what you're dealing with. So music to you is a way to express yourself. And I feel like that's kind of the whole purpose of our program, to be honest, is, using art as a way to express yourself, no matter the medium, no matter what you're doing. Just trying to be creative so that you can express yourself, because there are different ways other than talking. I mean, talking is important too, but there are other ways that you can express yourself within the artistic realm. So I think that's really important too.
Totally. And I'm a really firm believer and experiencer, if that's even a word, that, words say things. You can say something to someone, but music, it makes you feel things. And what I can say in a sentence, I can make you feel or understand through music. And I think that I've seen that firsthand with, someone tells me something versus someone puts it across to me in a song. I tell someone something versus I'm putting it across to them in a song. And you can see just a huge difference with both. You can see how, if I tell, there's a really great example that Jeff Buckley said once. He said, you can say, I love you. You can sing, I love you. But when you really feel it, it makes all the difference. You can sing I love you with so much feeling and with so much emotion that they feel it. They feel the love. And I think that's so true with any form of art, really, whether it's a painting that expresses something, a song that generates a feeling in someone. It's unmatchable in my eyes. Just the amount of sheer feeling and emotion that art, music, dance can, create in another, and the amount of understanding that comes through that expression and through that sharing of art.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. It definitely bonds us together in a very unique way, which I love.
Definitely.
What are your hopes and dreams in regards to your future with music?
I love music. I love writing music. I love performing music, and I also love working in music. I'm currently working for a nonprofit called NAM, which stands for the National Association of Music Merchants. And at NAM, we do a lot to benefit music education and music accessibility, which is so important to me, which I'm so excited to be a part of an organization that really devotes so much time and effort into promoting the ability of music making for all, not just for some, which is amazing. So, I know for me, whether I'm performing, writing, working in music, as long as I feel like what I'm doing for a living contributes to music and the music industry in some way, I'm happy. And of course, I love writing, I love performing. So I'm really looking forward to putting out some new material and continuing to always have that in my life in some way to keep furthering my career as an artist. I guess for me, as long as there's music, I'm very, very happy.
Yeah, that's awesome that you found a way to kind of combine your passion with a career. So it's really great that you're giving back in that specific way. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I love talking to you and getting to know your story. And I think your journey with mental health and your experience with music is really great. And I just wanted to give you a chance to share, if people want to learn more about you or your music, where can they go to find out more?
Yeah, so I guess the best way you can get in touch with me, if you'd like to get in touch, is Facebook, Instagram, all those fun social media sites. I am on as ESHA Music, so Esha K Music. I am more than happy to talk to people, reach out to people, I'm honestly 100% here to support anyone who needs support. And just, I love people. So if anyone just needs someone or just needs to know that there's someone out there rooting for them, please don't hesitate to be in touch, because I love all of you guys. Even if I don't know you, I still have a lot of love for you and I'm rooting for you. So that is Esha K Music on social media. And for people that want to listen to my music or follow along with my musical journey, I am on all music streaming platforms under my name, which is Esha K, ESHAK. I've got some music out there, and I'm excited to be putting some new music together to release soon. So yeah, those are my details.
Thank you for sharing. And yeah, you'll have to keep us updated with when you release new music so we can share it on social media. But yeah, thank you again so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can connect again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a wonderful experience getting to chat with you. And I'm so happy to have been a part of such an amazing community you've created.
That's so nice. Well, thank you. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
We are so thrilled to now share with you the song Surrender by Esha K.
I first heard your voice inside my head so long ago. I thought you were a friend, so everything you said I held on to it. Soon your whispers turned to screams. You were suffocating me. Your fire to gasoline. How could I be so naive? I wish it wasn't me you hooked onto. Life went from a dream to a catastrophe. I was weak, you were a criminal. Made me your victim, I lost all control. But I won't surrender anymore.
The To Be Honest podcast is a creative platform that enables youth and young adults to share their personal experience with mental health to help normalize the conversation around this often taboo topic. To Be Honest is a program of Momentum for Health and is supported by District 4 Inventory Funds, Republic Urban Properties, and BetterHelp. To learn more about To Be Honest, visit tobehonest.today or check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The To Be Honest podcast is hosted and edited by Avery Cruz, as well as edited by Peyton Dillehay. Music for the podcast was created by Julia Steele. For more information, check out the episode show notes in the streaming platform of your choice. Happy listening!